Welcome to Global Connections on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Today, we'll talk about Trump's ceasefire and peace deal negotiations. Has he succeeded in one yet? Our guest for the show is Dr. Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst. Welcome to the show, Roopmati.
Aloha, Jay. Thank you for having me on your show. It's such a pleasure, Jay.
Trump is trying hard to look like a peacemaker, but we should examine what is really going on under the hood, what in fact he has done, what he has said, and whether he has had any success in any of the peace deals he has tried to broker. So, Roopmati, let's take stock. We need to understand his efforts. We need to understand his negotiating style and his results in trying to negotiate or saying he's trying to negotiate ceasefire and peace deals in the second term, including those relating to the various theaters of conflict: Ukraine, Gaza, Syria, Iran, Yemen, Pakistan, Sudan, among others. The world is burning. And how successful has Trump been? So let's talk about those theaters. Let's take stock of what he's done, Roopmati.
Jay, so Trump's first trip abroad in his second term, and he makes it look like Trump is going to remain Trump's best friend only. He's lost so many friends on the international stage, Jay, I can't tell you. And through these ceasefires that we have examined in our different shows, Jay, you have seen that he has diplomatically regressed. And that is what is worrisome, because as the hegemon of the system, the US has got a responsibility to play. And through Trump's tactics, this is not being fulfilled. And so, Jay, we'll take it step by step to the three main conflicts that happened. So let's take the latest one that happened was the India-Pakistan conflict. And Jay, as we know, both are nuclear. Pakistan has been a sponsor of terrorism, time and again proven all the time, and they always had this nuclear blackmail. And India has one thing with Pakistan, that we don't want anything from them. India has given the land for Pakistan to be formed. This is a unique conflict. There is no want or annexation of land. There is no want for any resource. It is just that you please keep your terrorists in your boundaries. Don't send them to disturb our life. And India, you know, is on the path of becoming the third largest economy in the world. It has overtaken its colonial power last year. So we know it's on a path to progress. Any war takes you back 40 to 50 years. India did not want to get into this rut of a war of attrition with Pakistan, because they are already down in the dumps. It's a failed state. They don't have, they have huge inflation. They don't have enough manpower. They don't have infrastructure. They don't have basic, just the nuclear, just the, what do you say? Just the saber of rattling of a nuclear weapon is not going to get them anywhere. India did not want to get into a full-fledged war. So you remember we discussed Hindu phobia at one point of time. Then we saw that these terrorists, on the basis of religion, killed 27 pilgrims, tourists in Kashmir. So this was an attack on the civilian liberties of another sovereign state. It couldn't go unpunished. No full-fledged war wanted by India. So India has gone in, targeted 11 terror camps, which are sanctioned by the UN list sanctions committee. So it is not an unknown terrorist site. They're all very known. Last time we discussed, they also got the murderer of Daniel Pearl. And Pakistan, it was not an attack on the Pakistan military installations. It was not an attack on the Pakistani state infrastructure, just the terrorist camps and out. Pakistan retaliated with an attack on 15 cities of India with 600 drones, Jay. 600. And it's not a small country. It has a huge border which had to defend. And they have succeeded in doing that. So, Jay, and then the retaliation has to follow. So India has gone in and smashed up 11 of their air bases. And that night, the Pakistan DGMO that called up the Indian counterpart and said that they've had enough. And there was a call to the American office saying that they wanted to stop it. They couldn't sustain it. They don't have the capacity to sustain it. And Jay, we had discussed the Kirhana Hills, which is the nuclear facility that had a radioactive leakage. So that was a factor in bringing about this ceasefire. All this is happening. Okay, the war is ending in 3 days because India does not want to get into a huge, long drawn war. What happens? Trump gets up and says, after long hours of discussion, I have come to a ceasefire. So, how are you involved in something that is happening over there? Couple of days back, you said that you had nothing to do with this. So Jay, he had contradicting statements one on one. Then he wanted to claim that he got the ceasefire. Next thing he comes up with is saying that I will solve the issue of Kashmir, which is a 1,500-year-old problem. Now that is a state union territory of Jammu Kashmir, of union territory of India's um, problem. So India issued a statement saying that it's a Kashmir is a national issue and it will not be discussed by a third party. He had to take back his words and he said, no, I helped in putting up the ceasefire. Then he says that I told both of them, if you want trade, you will come to a ceasefire. If you don't want it, they're not kindergarten kids, Jay. You can't give them candy and say, it's not about the trade, it's about the lives, it's about the phobia that they have created, about your religion being your reason to die. So these are things which are very existential. India is fighting it, Israel is fighting it, and these countries are such. Ukraine is fighting for existence, but India and Israel are fighting a huge number of people who have just simple hate for them. And to bring about that trade brought about this ceasefire was a blatant lie on the international stage. He cannot afford to do this. He is in a position of the POTUS, which is responsibility, which has got to weigh in every word. You know the plenaries that we have in the United Nations. We have to discuss each word that has to be put in the sentence so it doesn't have a double meaning. This one is giving speeches on and off with such weird meanings that we have to rectify them. And he literally is unpredictable and cannot be trusted, Jay. And what happens is the fragility of the nations, uh, which comes at risk. And he doesn't weigh them before he speaks, Jay.
Let's go through some of the ones that I mentioned on my list of potential ceasefire deals and see what he has done, what he has achieved, because I'm really having trouble finding any achievements at all. So many commentators have said that his trip to the Middle East, his first trip as president outside the United States, was transactional. It was to make money and to sell arms. Selling arms is not making peace. You can quote me on that. I think he sold $1 trillion worth of arms between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Anyway, so here, Ukraine. There was supposed to be a big meeting. It didn't take place. It was going to be in Turkey. Putin didn't show up. Has there been a meeting? Is there going to be a meeting? The papers have said that Putin is playing Trump. Putin has said he's playing Trump. The Russian government has said that. So query, what is happening? Has Trump had any effect? Has he done anything? It's hard to have an effect if you haven't done anything. What is his achievement, if you will, in making a ceasefire or a peace deal for Ukraine?
Jay, for Ukraine, the evisceration of Zelensky was all that he did. And by humiliating him, he has demotivated him. This morale is totally down in the dumps. And when he is not able to face up to Putin, he's scrambling. He got the mineral deals done from Zelensky. And Trump has been very aggressive towards Zelensky, while on the other hand, like you said, Putin doesn't care about him. Putin is putting himself on a pedestal much higher than the baron of deals of Trump that we have. He is not interested in playing Trump's game, and he will do it. He'll do the ceasefire on his own terms. The day that Trump was there, it was one of the biggest drone onslaught on Ukraine. So who's listening to him? So that gives a very, very what do you say, different um, portrayal of the US visit, Jay. It has to have some kind of a respect. That is shattered when things like this happen. And he made it a whirlwind trip. The way he was with Salman of Saudi, just for those $1 trillion and the weapons, agreed that there is going to be a weapons deal, agreed that this money is big, but he did not need to shake hands with Jolani. He is a $10 million on his head. He was a Al Qaeda and ISIS recruit. We have discussed him before. Jolani, you can have a secret meeting with him, a closed door meeting with him. Don't bring it on the screen because media talks and these pictures stay, Jay. That gives a imbalance, that gives a wrong signal to these people. And we know that loyalty does not stay in militants or terrorists. They will get empowered. That fear of America is gone right now. He was attacking the Houthis. He got a word from them that they would not attack US ship. They have left the Houthis to thrive, I can say. But they are still attacking Israel. They are a problem for Israel. He has given $305 million of weapons to Turkey. Now, Turkey is a troublemaker in the region. They supplied drones in the recent India-Pakistan conflict. So you are disturbing the geostrategic balance. The IMF, which was now see the portrayal of IMF, Jay, the International Monetary Fund. There was a war ongoing on May 11th with India, and in the middle of that, Pakistan is sanctioned a loan of $1.8 billion. You're terror funding it. It's wrong. You have to give the money when they need it, not when they're in the midst of a war. So this was sanctioned by him. And on the side, his son had visited Pakistan a couple of weeks back for the cryptocurrency company that he wants to put up in Pakistan. Crypto is illegal in India. So Pakistan is a huge market.
Well, yeah, so many things. That's the point. I mean, he doesn't go to these places, and the places he goes to, he embraces a kind of strategy is, I'm going to help you make money.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give you money, or I'm going to take the sanctions off so you have more money. And that's the way I make peace. But that's really not an effective way to make peace, either ceasefire, or truce. And I might add, by the way, that in the case of Ukraine, after that regrettable meeting in the Oval Office, he did cut a deal with Zelensky for the rare earths, which I thought was really strange. But Zelensky felt that it was in his interest, probably because Trump promised him offline some kind of benefit. And then, he didn't follow through on that. And so Trump isn't doing anything. So I think Trump thinks he can get away with just making these rhetorical statements about how you're going to do better. That's what he's telling the American people. Under my leadership, you're going to do better. But his leadership is very questionable because he doesn't do anything, doesn't do his homework. He's involved in too many theaters at the same time. Just as he's flooding the zone in the US, he's flooding the zone internationally. So what you have is, this trip gives us an interesting look into his ability at deal making, at diplomacy, at foreign policy, and he flunks in all of those areas. I find it interesting, for example, that he didn't go to Sudan. Sudan has an active civil war going on, and it's really bloody, and it's getting worse, and people are starving and dying. And he terminated USAID, but he hasn't sent anybody there, and he hasn't even tried to negotiate some kind of truce or peace. So I think when he gets up and he tells us that he has achieved a truce or peace, um, a ceasefire in any of these theaters, it's never true. Never. If he thinks that's going to get him a Nobel Peace Prize, he's really all wet. It's not going to get him a Nobel Peace Prize or any prize. So I guess the question is, what effect does it have on the conflict areas in question? You mentioned before that they have begun not to trust him, and I think this enhances the whole lack of trust that he is experiencing in Europe and in Canada and Mexico. He is simply not following through. He is not providing any real negotiating at all. And they don't trust him from one day, as you said, to the next. So what happened in this trip? I think, well, my thought, like to know your thoughts, is that he has lost ground in terms of world respect, world
Yes.
credibility.
Yeah, Jay, he has really done that. He took the highest. He's actually, his rating is lowest for any president in the first 100 days of his reign, and this is exactly why it's happening, because when you negotiate a deal, you have to have a beneficiary, you have to have some profit. You can't try to make profit in every point or every stage. That's what he's aiming for. And on the way, he's lost such strategic allies. Like India had turned a friend. Israel is one of the best friends that you can have. Uh, Ukraine is like given to Russia for whatever they want to do with it. So these things can't happen under your nose. And Jay, uh, the Syrian issue, the Houthi issue, he could have solved so many uh, problems at one go, but he was playing put to the Saudi leaders' hands, and whatever they were talking about, it was just about giving more benefit to their side rather than Israel. The more he went towards their side, he was isolating himself away from Israel, and he was isolating Israel away from him. And Jay, he has literally given that news to Iran to sustain their nuclear program. And if he gives the go ahead for Iran to have nuclear weapons, it will be one of the biggest mistakes of his presidency as an international folly, which will not go unnoticed and which will cost Israel its state, Jay, because we know how much it has struggled after the terrorist attack, and how much it has gone through to get to this stage of having that ambition and coming so close to get it Hamas free. And the reason why you want this to be Hamas free, terror free, the main issue in the world today is terrorism. And if he neglects that and goes and, has a wonderful meeting with ISIS recruit, or gives his go ahead to the Houthis, it gives a wrong signal to these terrorists who can empower themselves, embolden themselves. And Iran is the first rogue country, who will suck the energy out of this kind of diplomacy going on. Jay, they will not. They will have that fervor to go ahead. That this is a soft person. We can take advantage of him by diverting his distraction techniques are being used on him himself.
Well, if he loses credibility, which I think he has, then he is no longer a fair witness to any peace negotiations. You have to be a fair witness. You have to be credible. And I want to summarize and ask you for the future of the conflicts in each of these areas. Of course, we're just taking guesses here, but let's look at them one by one. Ukraine, he has actually lost credibility as a peacemaker in Ukraine. He hasn't been able to meet with Putin. Putin doesn't want to meet with him. Putin is taking advantage, as you said. So it's going to get worse, not better, because there's nobody on the stage that can act as a legitimate peacemaker. Trump has taken himself out of that. How many times has he said, if you guys don't make peace, your problem. If you don't make peace, I'm just not going to be involved. And that's actually what's happening. So that we have a war without a peacemaker. So that one is a failure. Look at Gaza. So he's backed out of dealing with Netanyahu. Netanyahu is off and on, effectively destroying Gaza. And a query whether he has some kind of wink and a blink from Trump. I don't think he has that anymore, but Trump is not stopping him either. Trump is being less effective than Joe Biden was in terms of reining Netanyahu in. So, that is going to be a real disaster. I suppose one possibility is that Trump is waiting to build his Riviera. And when everything settles down and all the dust settles and there's nothing and nobody left, then Trump will come in and try to make some money and promise others that they can make some money. That may be what motivates Netanyahu right now. Okay, Syria. I agree with you. The guy in Syria is a terrorist. He has been a terrorist. Why should he stop being a terrorist? So Trump gives him a gratuitous deal where he takes off the sanctions and he helps him without any quid pro quo at all. And so what kind of a peacemaking is that? I suggest to you, Roopmati, that it's going to get worse in Syria. There will be further violence in Syria. And Trump, in doing what he did last week, he had the guy come to Saudi Arabia and was very friendly with him and all this. And I think that's going to wind up in dismantling the peace they have in Syria. So he's actually making it worse in Syria. I agree with you about Iran. We have talked about Iran in the past. Iran is not going to make a deal with Trump, just like Putin. They know his moves. Now, they don't have their network of proxies anymore. That has been largely dismantled. But the fact is they have a nuclear project that is well on the way to completion, 2 or 3 months, they say. This is very bad for the region. It's very bad for the world. And so I don't think Trump has helped in any way. Remember, he's the guy that took off Obama's non-proliferation agreement back when. Pakistan, Yemen, he attacked Yemen and had the the signal scandal over that. I don't think that was a successful venture in bringing peace to the region. He never tried to negotiate a deal with Yemen. He just bombed the hell out of them. And I think he continues to do that. At the same time, the Truman aircraft carrier has lost 3 planes in the past 2 weeks. It's really it's kind of a circus, and Trump is not succeeding in any way, either in the aggressive part or the negotiating part. I'm waiting to hear one bit of good news. Pakistan, we talked about. I think Trump has not made any contribution to peace in the region, at zero. He has marginalized himself with this rhetoric with no follow through and no help. And by the way, we can never forget that China supports Pakistan. Those hundreds of drones came from China, and Putin supports Pakistan. So, it's like Trump saying, oh, there are good people on both sides. No, that's not true. There are good people on the Indian side, but not the Pakistani side. Sudan, as I mentioned, he hasn't done anything. So those are all of the areas of conflict I could think of. There may be others. I'm thinking of Myanmar, perhaps, but he hasn't really done anything in those. Zero. So where is the deal making? This is the guy who has a handle on the art of the deal, but he isn't making deals, and it doesn't look like he's able to make deals. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jay, you summarized it so well, because he really has not been able to portray his conviction or his stand on the international stage. Each of these deals that you spoke of, none of them had a strong stand that America took. And America needs to take a stand so that the others follow. And when he's not doing this, the others are going haywire, Jay. He's lost such great allies now who will rely only on the strategic self-reliance, Jay. India and Israel are in a state of existential crisis. So they will not bow down to any pressure. Like when you want to survive, you go for, the basics. And these countries they came up with statements which showed Trump in a bad light. He had to backtrack from his statements. And you can't do that. You have to weigh in your words, like I said before. And they have to make sure that what they're dealing with, they're clear about which enemy they're dealing with. By giving these weapons to Turkey, 305 million, taking money from the Saudis, removing the sanctions from Syria, giving Pakistan the IMF funding. Is he financing terror? It's a big question. Is he financing the terrorism board in the world? You know what happens when terrorism thrives? Not now, not in a week's time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, they will have the capacity to come and hit us on the street. So, social liberty of civilians, when it is threatened, that is terrorism. And these terrorists, they have no other motive except to disturb, to terrorize, and to hurt. And by doing these, see the points of uh, financing that Trump has undertaken, all of them go into terror financing, all of them. So he has gone against the main enemy of today's geopolitical system, that is terrorism. The world has to unite, form a coalition against terrorism. Eliminating Hamas is of critical importance. Um, Curtailing Iran's capacity to have a nuclear weapon is not only good for what is that? Only not the Middle East, for the world. Pakistan sold their. They did not have enough ammunition to fight India. They had sold their ammunition to Ukraine. So imagine they are very capable of selling their nuclear weapon to Iran for a price, and Iran has got the money to make them dance.
Hey, maybe they're already doing that.
Yeah, so dangerous, so dangerous.
Well, let me go one step further. Now, we've seen Trump effectively attack the sovereignty of Greenland, Canada, Mexico, and the Panama Canal Zone. In terms of Greenland, we haven't heard much from him, and J.D. Vance had no effect in traveling there except to alienate the place. Canada is completely alienated. We've had regular shows about how the people in Canada, not only Mark Carney, but everyone in Canada, reacts to Trump's half-witted efforts to make it the 51st state and all that, and his tariffs against Canada. They have really come around to hate him. He hasn't gained anything, but he has lost a lot, including credibility. Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum's a smart woman, and he hasn't really gotten a leg up on her either. And Panama seems quiet these days. I'm not sure why. But Trump has abandoned his efforts about Panama. That's what it sounds like to me. So if you look at those four places, you wonder what they think about what you and I have been discussing, about his failure to negotiate deals, his failure to follow through, his empty rhetoric, his transactional approach without any substance. What do they think about it? Well, I think they have lost any credibility for him completely, that he's not credible for them. So whatever their moves are going forward to defend their sovereignty in one way or another, or to deal with others, other countries who will befriend them and defend their sovereignty, like China in the Panama Canal, it comes to mind. It seems to me that he has undermined his own manifest destiny initiative, and he's less likely to succeed with those four than he was before. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jay, you're so right about this. And the way he's threatening to have trade restrictions to get blackmail and get what he wants done is so fickle, Jay. Okay, fine, you have trade restrictions to boost your national domestic economy is acceptable. But you have trade to dictate your terms to the international society, not acceptable, because there's so many countries who are entering into free trade agreements with one signature and bypassing so many tariffs and having a thriving trade agreement, while on the other hand Trump is playing havoc by just jolting the international economy with these tariffs and actually disturbing it, Jay. Because when you don't, there will be a point when, suppose if when you remember Russia was under sanctions, the BRICS had come together for de-dollarization. When it gets to a point that the countries can't get together, take the hypothetical situation, they will say, we don't want to do any trade with the US. Where would that place the US?
The U.S. is really in bad shape in the eyes of others. I mean, let's
Yes.
take Europe. Europe, just the way you and I see all this news, and it always begins with the word Trump. Every day, all day news. Look at the television, the newspapers, the internet. It's always Trump, and the outline is shaping up now. We know what kind of a guy he is. We know what the destructive powers, destructive efforts that he's made in this country. And by the way, I want to mention to you, there's this fantastic article in today's New York Times, is the president will destroy us now, a guest essay by Thomas Edsall. Powerful, powerful. And so you have to look through the eyes of the people in Europe. They see that article. They see what Trump is doing. They see all the destructive things he's doing here, and they see his complete failure at having any effect on these areas of conflict, on creating ceasefires or truce agreements or any agreement. They only see this insane tariff initiative, which isn't going anywhere. But I want to ask you one other thing. There's somebody else watching. They're all watching. The whole world is watching, because their headlines also begin with the word Trump. Okay, so Canada's trade concept has always been north-south, right, across the border. Right? Well, they've reoriented themselves. They don't travel to the U.S. as much. They don't buy American goods. And in fact, the newly appointed ambassador to Canada made a very unsavory remark about how the Canadians, it was outrageous, the Canadians weren't buying American goods. Really? Where does the outrage start, I ask you? In any event, Canada now sees trade as an East-West concept. So they're cutting deals with countries in Asia. They have a lot of oil and gas that the U.S. has needed for a long time, and has purchased from them for a long time. But they're not selling it to the U.S. They can't sell it to the U.S. So they're cutting deals in Asia, and that very likely might include China. China will supplant us as a consumer of oil and gas. It's really an interesting change, and it doesn't help us at all. The same thing with Europe. Europe is reading those same headlines, and they have lost, all respect for Trump. He tried to break NATO. He tried to break the EU. He has been a real total jerk about Ukraine. He's been useless. Climate change. Thank you. I forgot that. Europe cares a lot more about climate change than Trump does, for sure. And he's getting worse. He's doing everything he can to despoil the environment and to deny and ignore climate change. So my question is, how does this affect the strategy of China, our most significant rival? Because they read those newspapers very carefully.
China will lie in ambush. The art of warfare of China is very important in this, because right now they are facing such a crunch time due to this 125% tariffs. It's made their goods doubled up and more. So you remember a couple of days back, because of this higher sanctions, Tim Cook, who is the CEO of Apple, has moved his venture from China. He wanted to move to another place. Now he has to move to a labor-intensive country. That is India, which is closest. So he will move to India. Now Trump has got this multi-layered blackmailing thing. He wants to have jobs in the US, but can Tim Cook afford to pay the salaries of the American level? He will want lower salaries, Jay, for his production. So he has chosen India and China, which are labor-intensive countries. Trump openly said in the press conference that I told him, do you want to do business here? You don't have to do business. $500 billion, don't put it in India. Come to the US. So that doesn't work today. Tim Cook said, they said that no, he wants to set it up in India. From China, he'll go to India. From India, he'll go back to China. But because of his production value, because of his China and India have got unique values for production houses, which they do not have anywhere else. So instead of cashing in on those, by putting these tariffs, Jay, he is in fact taking these producers away from the American market. You know, these things, you have to be conducive to trade. You can't have these. When globalization started, tariffs were considered to be hampering free trade and liberal thoughts. So we did away with these trade restrictions and bureaucratic controls for ease of payments, for ease of transactions. And today, by implementing these unilaterally, Jay, and haphazardly, because he has that weird chart that he's got, and he puts the numbers on each country. He's trying to, and in his eyes, he sees China as his biggest rival, his nemesis. So he wants to destroy China. And China will play the waiting dragon game. They will not move till they are prepared to attack. They will lay an ambush. They will take because domestically, they're facing a big crisis by laying off such a large number of workers. And that we know the domestic Chinese setup is controlled by the Communist Party, which is very overwhelming. They have restrictions on your freedoms. So it's got a very good grip on the country. But if this revolt goes to the next stage, Jay, we can have a hypothetical crumbling of China. So that happens. So internationally, China has the biggest market, biggest producer. Russia has a support. So they are in a better position than the US to tackle this. The US has to be careful how to align with China, or rather neglect it, or not hurt it to a point that each one will go for free trade agreements, like you said. Canada is going east-west instead of north-south now. Each one will find the way through. It's like a river. They find their way through.
We have a lot of issues on the table here. Yes. We have a lot of things that Trump has done, any one of which could bring him down. I mean, he's his reshoring manufacturing into the United States. It isn't working at all, and it's not going to work. Ford is moving out also. Ford doesn't care what he has to say. This is a very important thing. Cars are very important. And so he has lost credibility in Europe. He's lost credibility in trade. The tariffs have been a disaster politically and in terms of global trade. They reach everywhere. They make him look bad everywhere. People offshore look at what he's doing to the United States government, to civil rights, to immigration, to migrants. I mean, I could go on. It's so many things he's done. And I was going to ask you, which of these things is most likely to bring him down? But that's an unfair question. If you want to answer that, fine. But I would rather suggest, and you can comment, that they collectively they accumulate into a package that makes him so unpopular globally that the cumulative effect will bring him down. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jay, he gets a big negative marking for this trip, first trip abroad. Big negative marking, because he has not done anything to improve the stature of America. When a leader goes out, you have to increase the stature of your country, bring respect to your country. He's done the opposite. Imagine this was a solo trip. Now, in his second term, when he has gone to a different level of thought process, and he's playing Apprentice Part 2, think about it. If he goes into a meeting, multilateral meeting, what is his gesture going to be? The leaders are going to get scared to meet him one-on-one. What if he loses his mind and he starts attacking them? It will be public humiliation. People are going to avoid meeting him. People are going to escape from him to, not fall victim to his statements. All these things are going to be more evident as the year goes by. And the domestic public, Jay, we have lost jobs. We have seen the prices go up. Everything is blamed on the previous administration conveniently. How do you blame the failures of this trip on the previous administration, Jay? Because he's undone so many things in this one trip that it is difficult to pinpoint exactly how much we have lost in terms of diplomatic stature, Jay. It is a real put down.
Well, and Marco Rubio is supposed to be his Secretary of State, is saddled with half a dozen jobs now, and he doesn't have the time, inclination, or talent to be the Secretary of State. I mean, arguably, he'd be helping with these efforts at making ceasefires and peace agreements, but he really hasn't been involved. Have you noticed that? It's just Trump. And that brings me to my last question to you. Let's assume, this is a very unlikely assumption, that Trump's cabinet votes to relieve him under the 25th Amendment. Let's assume that. And let's assume that somehow you get to be the Secretary of State. My favorite question. What do you do to repair the credibility of the country? What do you do to get back in and roll up your sleeves and make peace agreements and ceasefire agreements around the world? What do you do for all of the destructive mess that Trump has created overseas? It is the responsibility of the Secretary of State to come up with and execute policy around foreign policy and relations. What do you do as the next Secretary of State, Roopmati?
They bring back my closest allies back, my natural ally, who's Israel, and the closest ally, one of the best allies that I can have, India, and stop terror funding, Jay. Terror funding is an issue which will roll back into America. Why does he forget 9/11? It was not a small thing. We have lost so many lives over there. It has affected so many lives later on. And terrorism has so many, multifaceted avenues to thrive, Jay. When this money trickles down to them, or when they have weapons, be sure the trigger is pointed at you. So if you give them, you remember those child soldiers in Africa? They're given because they do not have guilt of killing. So by arming these terrorists, he's giving them more ammunition, more firepower to come and destroy societies today. The biggest threat to humanity today is terrorism, Jay. And he fails to understand it, or he fails the urgency to, he's playing Monopoly at the international level when we should be worried about lives, Jay.
Wow. Okay, Roopmati, very important thoughts, but we'll have to leave it there for today. Thanks so much to our guest, Dr. Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst here on ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell, host of Global Connections, and we've been discussing Trump's ceasefire and peace deal negotiations, which have been singularly unsuccessful. Thanks to our viewers for watching. We'll see you again soon for the next one. Aloha. Aloha, Roopmati.
Aloha, Jay. Thank you so much.